Sure.
Ma'am, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Very good and welcome to episode 2 of Candid Talks with Vinita Berry. The title is Restructuring, Revisiting Education COVID-19. With a quote from Alvin Toffler. Alvin Toffler said that the illiterates of 21st century will not be those not read and write, but those cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think you all will agree with me that we humans have the maximum elasticity and we are adaptable to change. And post COVID, I think we all have been very resilient and have been deal with changing scenario post COVID. In this scenario has pushed all of us to change the landscape of education and reconfigure the whole system. I was very glad to read a few lines in the National Education Policy document that I wish to quote here. It was that it is becoming increasingly critical that children not only learn, but more importantly, learn how to learn. Move forward towards less content and more towards learning about how to think critically and solve problems, how to be creative and multidisciplinary, and how to innovate, adapt, and absorb new material. I totally and educationists all around us will be able to realign every 21st
Vinita, we can't hear you well.
At all.
Vinita,
Today,
there's some.
in today's discussion, we will discuss with the expert.
Vinita, we can't hear you.
Experts how they are going to
I think there's been some issue. She'll be back, I'm sure. Yeah. Vinita, you're on mute.
Yeah, she's on mute.
Is it better?
Hi, right now we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know till when did I speak, but then I'll begin from here then that today, in today's discussion, we are going to discuss with our experts how they are going to revise and revamp the school systems, their regulation, their governance to make it most beneficial for all the learners. And now without taking much time, I will do the honors of introducing and welcoming my most eminent panelists today. I'm so honored and privileged to welcome the guru of gurus. I think most of the people know her so well, Miss Lata Vaidyanathan, and a veteran educationist, and Miss Uttara Singh, also an innovative and progressive educationist. Miss Lata Vaidyanathan is the director of Gyan Bharati School, Saket. During an illustrious career of more than 3.5 decades, she was the principal of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan School at Chandigarh, the founder principal of Aisha School at Parwanu, and the principal of Modern School Barakhamba Road, New Delhi, for 14 years till her retirement in 2014. What what an experience. Ma'am was honored with the National Award to Teachers in the year 2003 by the President of India. She is also the recipient of numerous awards, including the Dr. Radhakrishnan Award, Bharat Shiromani Award, Madhav Gaurav Ratna Achievement Award, International Lifetime Achievement Award 2009, Global Warming Reduction Award 2009, and Educationist of the Year 2013. I think in few years' time, we'll have to hold a webinar only to discuss what all Lata ma'am has done and achieved. She is the director of many more prestigious educational institutions and is in the governing board of many schools. And apart from a formal profile, please allow me to add a little bit from my side. She is the most humble, most generous, most approachable educationist I have ever met in my life. She definitely is an inspiration and a role model to many of us. And even if I get to be 10% of what ma'am is, I will have a successful life, I believe. I welcome you, ma'am, and I feel so honored to have you here on this platform. The second panelist today is Ms. Uttara Singh, the director of the Sri Ram Millennium Schools and the principal of the Sri Ram Millennium School, Noida. Her career as an educationist and an administrator spans more than 2.5 decades, and she has been leaving impactful footprints in this journey of education. Under her able leadership, the Sri Ram Millennium Schools today are institutions to be reckoned with and hold the distinction of being counted amongst the elite category of academic institutions in the country, as is evident from the various recognitions received by the school. Ms. Singh with the school and her team and are also the recipients of the prestigious Rex Karamveer Education Chain Champion Award for creating a positive social impact and attitudinal transformation in the community. She has been successfully living her vision of taking learning beyond academics in order to create new generations of lifelong learners. Her steadfast belief that education must focus on preparing children to excel and pursue their dreams with confidence in this ever-changing world, combined with her determination and commitment to create a happy school for children, staff, and parents, has become a reality with the Sri Ram Millennium School, Noida. Hearty welcome, Uttara, and I always praise your unconventional ways and your creativity. And may God bless you with lots more to be done with the system and the educational faculty. So in today's time, let us begin the discussion. Ma'am, in today's time, the pedagogies of teaching and learning, the curriculum, the education system, everything needs to be evolved to suit the learners and to assist them in having a fulfilling experience in the school years. Our priorities, I think, have changed. The needs of the society have changed and the learners are also changing. So Lata ma'am, can I just ask you to highlight how are we as educationists adapting to the changing scenario of teaching and learning?
Firstly, thank you, Vinita. Like to recognize Uttara's presence. And you know what, to all the listeners, if any, I want to tell you, Vinita has been extremely generous in saying whatever she said. All that I can say is that, yes, I have had a longer stint perhaps than these younger generation people. And so that only adds to the wisdom. It does not actually sometimes be relevant in present times in terms of learning. Therefore, the subject today on our discussion, what are the learners and teachers doing? And right at the threshold of the new education policy, which has just been announced, there is a lot of things that we must be thinking or talking about. So let's open with the conventional, the most discussed and over-discussed subject. How have we actually got over this pandemic? You know, the pandemic is there, I think, stay for a little more while till all our frontline scientists are trying to find a remedy. It's a beautiful example. I was listening to Dr. Trehan, and that's a beautiful example of saying how learning happens in a certain context. And that sets the context for what we are about to hear a little later. He was first asked when first 30 patients were admitted to Medanta. And he said, you know what? This is a new situation. All that we know is how to deal with our patients. We do not know how to treat this patient. We are learning. So we are looking at the diagnosis. We only have the prognosis in hand. We are looking at the diagnosis. We are looking at what this will teach us. What will this teach us? And in the process, between the first time I heard him and now last week, he says we have learned a lot. He said we have learned that the virus behaves in many ways. We have learned that they are different in different places. We have learned that what is understood at one time is not the same, it mutates. We have learned that one set approach will not be enough. We learned that there are 5 different tests and one can be the best test to identify that it is. We have learned that there can be an antibody test, there can, of course, vaccines as the last resort. but there can be antibodies, there can be a plasma treatment, there can be an oxygen giving, there can be preventive measures, depending upon each stage. You know what? And the other day he said, now at the end of these few months, we are better equipped, we have better knowledge, and we are better able to handle it. Which means that when we first went to the doctor, he actually didn't know what to do with the COVID patient. That is exactly where our education stands. When the pandemic hit us and the schools just went into a safety lockdown, what did we know? It is not that Microsoft was not telling us how Teams work. There were schools which were called Microsoft schools. It is not that we didn't know how Google Meet works. It is not that, of course, the Zoom came in as a little bit of a more interesting option, but we knew of WebEx. We knew that there were industries using this platform for less travel and more discussions. But we never thought in education, this is the way forward. Everything closed down, travel, tourism, hospitals, not hospitals, malls, and every single establishment, shopping centers, buses, trains, railways, airways, everything shut down. School shut down, but learning didn't shut down. So here were our frontline teacher warriors who on the next day literally responded out of fear, out of curiosity, out of anxiety, schools that were so conscious about their duties, children at crossroads, parents confused, and so we reopened the schools. How? We simply sat in our respective homes, trained our teachers, and overnight training is only managing. It's not training. It's managing. Saying, okay, let's all get into Zoom and let's start the process. So we started the process. And when we started the process, we thought we could get better every day, exactly like the doctors figured out what to do with their patients, we figured out what to do with our teachers. And within, I think, less than a week or more, everyone had either opted for their Microsoft Teams or the Google Classrooms or the WebEx platforms, and everyone started delivering their lessons. The real thing to think about in the learning context for adults. Let us profile the learning context of the adults in schools. What happened? We had to relearn, unlearn, as Toffler just said, all that we know. And what do we know? We know that you require sunlight, water, and oxygen for, for photosynthesis to happen, for example, and water, air. But we didn't know how to communicate this properly over these platforms. So these platforms are not available to everyone free. So let us look at the difficulties we had. So what did parents do? Because now, thankfully, we all have systems in school, then the management systems in school, we used our own portals. We used for communication. The first thing was, how do we communicate? So we used our portals, we used our WhatsApp, we used our email IDs, we used telephones, we used smartphones, we used all possible toolings available. So the first learning was that for every learning to be transacted, there needs to be a process and procedure and infrastructure. So we first took care of the infrastructure. The first learning was establish that contact. Do not worry about physical contact. Let us see if we can catch them because we know how to do it. It has the other side. We'll go one by one. It has the other side. Soon we realized that if I had 40 children in class, whether it was private, public, whatever, and even the teachers, all of them didn't have the wherewithal. Everyone didn't have a free-flowing laptop or a smartphone to deal with the responses of the school. It was not there. So we knew that everywhere the smartphone availability was not there. And even if people had laptops, it was not necessarily available only to children. There were shortages at home. Tooling impact studies showed us that less than 48% actually had in private schools the ability, even in private schools. So schools responded by, making it possible, collecting donations, rebooting systems, passing it on to their EWS or other students, just felt responsible that everyone should get connected. So that was the first thing. Tooling response was our first response to this. And then training teachers. And then training teachers. So we trained the teachers. But again, we have to understand that training teachers, what they know and how they transact requires a lot of these knowledge management systems to really use technology beneficially, appropriately for transaction of knowledge. And you know what? Children are faster than us. They are the digital natives. You give them anything and it works like this. Even the experiment conducted by NIT, with the hole in the wall, showed us that it's not just about our rich elite children. It is about any children. You give them some toy, they will figure out what to do with it. So it is about, once they had it, we needed to figure out how this transaction has to take place. So let us look at the second part of the infrastructure, which are different. In a class, level playing field, all in uniform, sitting inside, and everyone is talking the same language. There is a contact point, there is a eye contact, there is a response contact, there is a transaction ease, and everybody is listening. As opposed to the children's homes, where their rooms, their bedrooms, their two-room tenements, their bedrooms becoming their classrooms, their atmosphere being no peers available, no friends available, sometimes very difficult because of things or environment at home. I would stop by for a second to say, one has heard over this period what has been the domestic violence, increase in child abuse, increase in emotional disturbance, both for the entire family and the child in question. So that's a completely different subject that can be dealt with. So it's not hunky-dory is all that I'm trying to say. So infrastructure-wise, once this is kind of accepted, then we said, okay, next what? So the infrastructure is there, the environments are different, the ecosystem in which transaction happens is completely different now. So we soon learned that the technology cannot just replace a blackboard or a whiteboard or a green board, and the same thing continues, because that's not the way you can educate beautifully. Of course, that is the best you can do in difficult circumstances or at the starting point. But I think with a lot of training that has happened over this period, where teachers, instead of working from 8 to 2 or working from 8 to 8 literally, preparing their PowerPoints, preparing their methodologies, preparing transaction material, sending material, writing material, looking for blended ways of doing things, the flipped classroom, material to be sent either electronically or otherwise. So through all these different ways, we suddenly realized that online learning has a completely different approach and an ecosystem. Here, the responsibility from a classroom teacher shifts on to the personal responsibility of the students, and which is very challenging when it comes to ECC levels or even the primary levels. There, the parents will have to sit down with the with the children to ensure that some learning is of good quality happening. Here, the child has to take responsibility for his own learning. So if I stop for a moment here to say that this is the way the teachers responded, and if I have to say that we actually need to look at learning pedagogies which are different, and suddenly then we are hit with this new education policy, and we are seeing how the curriculum is changing, how the 5+3+3+4 system is coming in. I think that's a subject I can wait for and discuss a little later if it fits in your scheme of things. But what is the one point that I want to mention here is that all teachers, everyone need to recognize that what was slowly building as transaction to improve quality of learning, even when the schools were reopened, now becomes a listed pedagogy with the curriculum that's available to you. So what are the listed pedagogies? Just think about it. And all of this needs to be properly trained. The material is available, the material is understood, but what is it? So we look at the project-based learning approach, which is not just an approach, it's a complete pedagogy in itself. And you know, nothing too surprising or shocking for us, because if you look back, the Guru Shishya, it was never a transaction of, you know, given material and questions in return, which was like a rote memory thing. It was never there. In fact, our more ways of learning in the past are all our scriptures tell us that the entire Guru Shishya Parampara was a perfect project model. So that as one full pedagogy, the other pedagogy being the project-based learning. There is now this art integrated learning. There is a sports integrated learning. There is the storyboard or the storytelling pedagogies. So if you look at the whole lot of pedagogies that we are now talking about, it actually fits into the scheme of doing things online. You know, and then when you match this with the 21st century skills, because we are at crossroads, looking at whether it's collaboration. I mean, I think everybody is familiar with these terminologies like communication, collaboration, and, you know, creativity, and then link it up with the higher order thinking skills. It is not about a set of questions that can be asked in order that, you know, you think and answer. It's about the whole way in which you learn and transact. The whole, the verb system of our questioning, the understanding of our continuous comprehensive assessment of students as for and of learning. All these things come into a great play in this entire transaction, to put an overview to how the teacher has changed. And just a few words on how the home front has changed. So the children have to be emotionally looked after. The parents have to respond. Therefore, the responsibility of the parents have become a lot. So therefore, the home environment, the home ecosystem has to be extremely supportive of the school and the child, so that learning is at ease. The environment has to be right. We need to educate both and converse with parents and collaborate with them, seek their feedback, improve our systems, and holding their hands, work for the children in terms of, you know, what we call internet hygiene, what we call classroom hygiene, what we call the learning hygiene, set forth the protocols and explain to them that this is the only way in which it will work. So the profile basically, so what has changed is the learning teaching profile. Nobody's teaching, because it's a collective learning process. Everything that we change, we are also learners. If we drop this part of our learning capability or capacity, we'll actually lose. The gap is so large. Even otherwise, we were saying that we are in the threshold of the most unpredictable. We are already opening up the liberal arts colleges only to make sure that, you know, we understand liberal arts and it's how it evolves into efficient human being and outcomes of human beings' competencies. Because we are moving into an unpredictable world, we have a 2030 workforce that we are currently nurturing, which we do not even know what are the workplaces available and how are they available to our children. So what is it that we are doing? The profile of the teacher is changing. The profile of the learner is changing. The teacher is helping them learn and the child has to take more responsibility. There is more collaborative learning. Everything is project-based. If you tell them a definition first, they wrote it. But if you tell them to find the definition, I can tell you for sure, try it. Pandit Jasraj has passed away yesterday. And I think due humility, we need to recognize this. And I can tell you that many of us may not know about his life. Or some of us who are deeply interested in classical music and dance may know. But give an assignment to your children today. Ask them to profile Pandit Jasraj and post it by 10 o'clock tomorrow. They will post on a Padlet or on a using all kinds of toolings that today we have in our control. And that we are using hopefully for assessment as learning, about whose detailing we can talk later. I think you will know that we are not teachers. We are not teaching them anything. We are helping them learn. That is the level to which we need to rise and change profiles is all. And in order to talk about changing of profiles, I don't think I can say it without three things. One, how the pandemic changed us. Two, how the new education policy is revising and once again telling us how things are, because we need a context for what we discuss. So I think this is very, very critical in understanding. And I think this space is not adequate to go into greater details. But this is how I see that all stakeholders have to change, not just the teachers, not just the parents, not just the students, but also the parents whose roles have become more significant. And along with that, the family, the society in which we live, the entire ecosystem responses. When people send out for learning inquiries into the community, how the community responds. So we are stepping out. We thought our classroom was the space of teaching learning. No. Now we are thinking that technology rooms are spaces of teaching learning. Sorry, our teaching learning spaces is out of all the classrooms, out of the machines, out into the community, and our marble rooms can stay there for a while, which I don't know how useful it's going to be. So learning has never been arrested by anybody lifelong. Go back into the histories of Newton's and everybody, it always happened outside. So let's hope that this is the ecosystem in which I come. I'm sorry, don't give me the mic and say, don't speak. So please feel absolutely free to say, can we come back to this later? Please feel free. I just feel so passionate about learning. Thank you.
But ma'am, it was very beautifully discussed. I agree with you that we have actually, overcome so many challenges, and still we are fighting. Still we are trying to evolve and come out of it. And especially, I always say that the essential services were not only the doctors and the forefront medical workers. The teachers were the most essential services, done by them, because they are handling the generations to come. They are handling the biggest chore of really, taking the responsibility in such challenging ways.
So the Russian was asked that the vaccines have now come and you're starting on with it. Who are the first people to get it? So they said doctors and teachers. So they asked white doctors. I just read this piece. It says white doctors because right now they are the frontline workers, and white teachers because they have to make the doctors.
Absolutely, absolutely. So beautifully said. So Uttara, can I also ask you, ma'am has discussed about all the challenges that we all have faced, and how we are overcoming with all that. But how are we going to bridge these gaps? And post-COVID, what do you think the schools are going to look like? What will be the issues that will be, the priority to be addressed once everything reopens? Can you share your insights on that with us?
Thank you so much, Vinita. Namaste to all. And Lata ma'am, it's an absolute honor to be on the same platform as you. I think today I am feeling like I have really worked hard.
How sweet is that? No, you're all our hopes. I always say you're my hope.
Thank you so much.
Bless you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. But you are an inspiration to all of us. And we've always tried to emulate. And whenever I've met you at any platform or heard you speaking, I've always learned so much. Just like today, everything that you spoke really resonated with me. Like you were saying exactly what I keep feeling. The way I saw our teachers, cope with things. Initially, the struggle, how they felt empowered, how we gave them training, and how today they talk like empowered teachers. And, even the children, it's so wonderful to see how the children are slowly, so that just shows the resilience of a human being, that we adapt to change. And in this instance, I think we all have adapted very fast and very quickly, almost overnight, isn't it? But looking forward now, what has happened, and we are all in a particular situation at the moment. Now, looking forward, when schools reopen, that is the day I think we are all really looking forward to. Firstly, personally, I think the first thing I'm going to do, if social distancing is all over and things are normal, I just want to hug my children and, really stand at the gate and say namaste, bacho, and come in, bacho, and oh God, that I think is what we all want to do. Isn't it, ma'am? Yes. Yes. So that is like a very ideal situation where, we go back to school and school is normal in terms of we don't have to worry about all the fears and all that surround us today. But that seems a little far off. Maybe schools will open before that and we'll have to follow these norms and, bring in some changes into our systems so that education and learning continues. Like ma'am said, learning hasn't stopped. School is closed, the building is closed, but school hasn't closed at all. You know, so keeping that in mind, of course, we all know the physical things that need to be done. Social distancing, maybe we need to call children in batches, we need to have separate entrances, separate exits, we need to do all of those things which will ensure the safety of the children. We need to have the masks, we need to have SOP, all that. I think for me, if you ask me, that is very easy to do because that is the process. I don't see any problem ever getting an infrastructural process in place. But what is going to be the challenge is the mental well-being of everybody. And here I'm not only talking about children, I'm talking about parents sitting at home who are constantly going to be worrying that my child has gone to school. I hope there is a positive case. I hope my child comes back safe. And you know, as soon as the child comes back, earlier the mother used to ask, "Bete, tumne tiffin khaya? Aaj maam ne kya kiya?" Now, aapne mask to nahi utara, aapne haath dhoye, aapne sanitizer use kiya tha. You know, the whole perspective has changed, and that fear somewhere I feel is something all of us need to handle, and we need to be at schools very, very, very particular about it, and we must make our system such that we can, because you know, when the fear of psychosis, I was reading somewhere, this whole thing, as soon as you wear a mask, you know, it's like you're wearing armor. That's the kind of psychosis that comes in. That's the psychology that sets in, that I am now wearing a mask going out into the world. The soldiers used to wear the armor and go for war. Syndrome of fight or flight in our minds. And as human beings, today's world, we don't require that flight or fight syndrome in our times. That was required when we were, you know, at the caveman stage or those stages, when we were really, the wars were rampant. Today, it's not required. But it has, when that comes in, hormonal. So how do we make our children feel that they are in a world which is not so dangerous, which will recover, which is fine, which you are going to be growing better, it's okay. So that positive thought has to come in by a program which is planned, where there is teaching happiness. You have school who are, you know, the students trust those counselors. You have teachers who the students talk to. You have leaders, school leaders who are available, parents and students, because the whole community is, when it comes to getting back to normal. That I personally feel is something we all must focus on. While we have our COVID SOPs in place, right from the youngest nursery students to the oldest grade, now a grade 12 student, a grade 10 student going into board exams. You know, what is the mindset of a child? How much, how worried are they? So ensure program in school, it just doesn't remain as, you know, something that the school council will take care of. It's not going to work like that. And also, you know, that strongly has to be taught it's not a quality that you develop just because you're thrown into a situation where you need to be strong. That is learned. They can just learn like that. Is it fair? Don't we as adults need to handhold them a little bit and actually give them stories? Like ma'am said, storytelling. Storytelling, I feel, is one of the best techniques possible for all age groups. We learned so many things at our grandmothers. They told us all the stories about every single thing. My dad used to make up stories and, you know, teach us about values. And he had made up a story of three of us. I have two siblings. So we had a family story which had three characters. And those three characters, I can tell you, it was called Bozo, Gozo, and Mozo. It just came through those, and it just stayed with me. So I think, you know, we need to be, like you said, more creative, more imaginative, make the whole system not only secure physically, but also look at emotional security, also look at mental security, also look at spaces where children are comfortable to just go and be. And really, I'm telling you, it's not easy. We've just started going back with our admin staff also, and I can see the fear. Nobody wants to come near each other. No, and it's very important to maintain that today, because you have to maintain your safety and security. But you know, what is that doing to us as human beings? We are not wired to be isolated, right? We are wired to be social beings. We want to be connected. Even now, I mean, the way we connect through this, it leaves you feeling so good after this. Oh, we've talked to a whole lot of people, and we've heard Lata ma'am, and I've spoken to Vinita, so today my day is good. Children need much more than through a screen, right? Everybody needs that. So that is those are the the SOPs, if we say. I feel those need to be given equal attention, along with all the things. And that is how schools. And another thing is, online education is here to stay. It is going to stay. We cannot now, say we'll go back to only classroom teaching. We need classroom teaching, absolutely, 100%. We cannot manage without a live classroom. But teachers will have to bring in these innovations. And all the teachers I speak to, they want to bring in these innovations. They are so happy to teach, through these videos, through the Edpuzzles, through the Padlets, through everything. All these tools have suddenly become so beautiful. So, for teachers, the online medium has to be integrated with the offline medium. So we have to really work that out, balance it out, and see. And like I was talking to ma'am earlier, for us to say all this is very easy because we have the resources available to us. But I honestly feel that we must look at a larger perspective in the world. We must look at a larger perspective in our country. And, children who don't have these things also, there has to be some method where learning has to continue for them. So what are we doing? I mean, I would love to be a support school for another school and help them. But how do I reach out? So here is where I feel certain government policies, they have come into the new education policies, but they have to be stronger and have to be implemented. Because learning has to be across. Our education, today I feel the government's education budget should be the highest. It actually is required. A country that has education as its foundation is going to be the country for the 21st, 22nd century. If we don't do that, and children are natural learners, like Lata ma'am just explained to us, and we all know, children are curious, they want to learn. You give them something and they are there. And all of us have been taught by our students. In fact, our students were telling me the other day, I was talking to my student council, and they said, ma'am, we've learned to be very patient. I said, I'm very happy to hear that. Yes, ma'am, we have to be very patient now with our parents, with our teachers, because there are so many things that we get, but you don't. But we've really learned this quality. So I think, that's our children for us. They are there to support us. Let the role reversal also happen a little bit. Let the children be the ones who are leading the way. Let us follow the children in many ways. And let us try and make this environment, when schools open, physically, mentally, emotionally, a very safe space for all stakeholders. I hope I managed to get through to you, Vinita, what I feel very strongly about.
Absolutely. And the beauty of today's webinar is that it is actually coming from the heart. As it was from ma'am's heart, it was as if, everybody is talking from the core of the heart about everything. And I agree with you that, we all knew that these changes are going to come sometimes in the future, because artificial intelligence is coming, so much technology is there. We all knew, but yes, we were caught off-handed. We were not prepared. We knew, but then that transition had to come instantly. We had to quickly switch over our ways. And we all are doing our best. That fear is there, still still there, but I think slowly with the ways changing, even in today's time, so many, I read in the paper, there was an article on the research that how many parents want to send back their children to schools. So I think 64% of them said that we are happy with the online system. Yeah. We are okay. We will not risk our children's life. But yes, parents are becoming satisfied and happier with the online education. And definitely, I agree with you. This is going to be the future. Why not start now? Begin today with changing our ways, and we all are doing it. Hats off to all of you in this field. Actually, Lata ma'am, can I ask you one very beautiful question? That so many losses and gains, if we talk in that terms, that how children and their education has they have actually benefit from it or not benefited post COVID. I don't know how do we gauge what have they benefited and what have they lost. So in this scenario, what do you think will be the profile of the 2020 learner in the times to come? How would you describe that?
So it's a very vast field you're put before me. Earlier we used to be talking about a 21st century learner's profile, right? Now, given the conditions in which we are, the learning profile of generations that will be in workforce in 2030, 2040, 2050, even in 3 decades, are all in school right now. So at least 2 decades are certainly in school right now. And when we look at the learner profile, there is a major shift. There is a major shift. It's not new to hear of this phrase, which is called homeschooling. We just take it back there for a moment and think of what is the learning profile of a homeschooled child. And it's happening in the United States. It's happening in places where, there is a flexibility of learning across subjects, which is interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary or cross-curricular learning patterns, and where the choices are given. Strangely, for given our kind of a country where the education profile of the country itself is questionable, where there is Pratham data to say that a class 3 child still doesn't have the reading capability or the numeracy capability at the class 3 level. And where it's now we have a foundation for literacy and numeracy according to our new education policy that we have all read. Now, given the context in which we are now, we have a Sundar Pichai on one end, Athena Della on one end, serving the community. We have children who are out of school and not in school and have no idea that in which way the schools function. One of the major responsibilities of people like us, like Uttara, you, me, sitting and discussing education, has to go a little beyond our immediate boundaries, because we are educators of children. We are not educators of labeled schools alone. We have one job responsibility for which we get paid, but the resources from where we get paid belong to all. It's common resource. You eat food, a farmer grows. You only pay money, but the resources belong to all. Therefore, if you can even take that small little understanding forward, I see 3 types of profiles. And we are talking now only of children, not of educators. Yeah. A first profile of children who are completely out of school. But if you think that, these 15% children, it actually started interesting me when I heard the children who are enrolled, and these are not traceable. They all migrants moved towards their respective places. What is the nature of that child? One extremely disturbed because he's not going back to school. The one opportunity that he had that he could come back and rule the world is right now denied to him. So they traced 3 children. What are they doing? And the 3 children who were traced, one was working in his dad's cycle mechanic shop, helping him fix, because his dad's workers were not present. So if the dad's little unit has to work, which is just outside his little kutia, where he's repairing cycles, because now there are less cars and more cycles on roads. So he was trying to help him fix punctures and all of those little handy work for which he had otherwise a man when this child was going to school. Situation 1. Situation 2. Little eating joints opened up in thelas. The workers were not there. The parents were sending samosas or chole bhatures, and the girl child was helping that cooking and giving it to people. A third situation. No workers coming to the farm for even plucking vegetables, which nature has healed in so many ways, thanks to people staying inside. So the produce in the agricultural farms became more, but there were less people there to harvest. Children went back to health. The question I'm asking today is, if I were to contrast the learning profile of my highbrowed children, who probably do not know sometimes that potatoes are found underground and not on trees, who is more skilled? That I can fix a puncture if my cycle and I don't take my cycle running to somebody, who is more skilled? If I don't know how to fix a meal, who is more skilled? You know, I'm looking at the overarching, the metacognition involved in this kind of learning, right? And look at the profile, because here we are not doing a less serious kind of a talk. We are delving deep into understanding a little more of the mind. So if I look at that and then jump forward and look at your scenario in the National Education Policy, there is a chapter which talks of capacities and skills and knowledge, right? And out there, they say, let us have 10 days of no bags. Then it says, can we go and learn some carpentry, some electrical circuits, and so many other things, and food production, maintenance? Can we go apprentice with somebody? Can we have work exchange programs with neighboring industries and all of that? Why? What these children are deprived of as a school, we are trying to fit it into school as a pedagogy of learning to enrich our skills and capacities. These are two ends. We just need to come to the central point where everyone gets both. So this is one profile. The second profile is of the child who's sitting inside the house and learning. And therefore, as I said sometime earlier, the learning quality will depend on the personal responsibility the new ecosystem takes over. The new ecosystem does not have teachers in the house. It has parents, it has siblings, it has uncles, aunts, grandparents. It has a family structure and an extended family structure. And sometimes a very lonely structure. There is a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and both the parents are either working on their laptops, or both the parents need to go back to work because industries have opened, offices have opened. 2 banking parents, they are from day one in the banks. Who is there in the house? Look at this confused profile of this child. So here we have a new profile of interactive environment. They are learning with the support of all this and the machine in front of them. And the teacher in the box, who comes and goes and is responding to many teachers. And we are then talking of how many hours of screen time is good time. So there is this interactive profile which is emerging. One is a skill profile outside of the rooms. The other is a half profile with family as an environment and an interactive machine, and a huge noise around how much of screen time. For all age groups, including ourselves. So this is the second kind of a profile. So what does this profile child need to do? Seek support, learn, continue, complete, extend, get out, be curious, find out, learn, self-learn, be adaptable, be productive. So look at the number, and also look at his own milestones in the journey of learning. Ask questions, everything that we wanted, then, and communicate well, because if he's asking verbally or non-verbally, he's doing all of this. Also, look for information, higher order thinking. So the profile here, depending on the age group, is changing, which was a little more parasitically driven in schools. Because in schools you told them, telling was a culture. Now finding is a culture. Now in the blended learning, because there isn't enough time on screen, you're sending the material and saying, okay, in the limited time that we have, we shall discuss. There was one way of saying that we have, it's like saying, and then we have all these museum studies and interactive tours, the videos, and whole lot of things which is now easily possible through this medium. So the attention to medium search and research has gone up. So the profile is changing in terms of their physical, in terms of their emotional, in terms of their cognitive, in terms of their mind mapping. Everything is changing. So to an advantage. The disadvantage of this profile is they are very upset about their peer interactions. They're extremely upset of tech and touch debate. They can't touch anybody. And if I can't touch, and if I'm not comfortable, if I cannot hug, and if I cannot reach out, if I cannot shake hands, if I cannot kick a ball, I am absolutely in despair. So this is the profile. The third profile of the adult child. Thank God, no one to disturb me. I can handle my technology. I'm a nerd. I want to be one because my success, like the IIT exams, are not being postponed. Nobody can lose a year. The Supreme Court has said that. So what is a child doing? Sitting and learning. The profile here is of an independent learner. The profile here is of a seeker. The profile here is of a good communicator. The profile here is of a good question. The profile here is of somebody who can handle his mess and also seek you out to help him clear the mess. So the independence of the senior child is growing, which must be taken advantage of. I don't think for any stages we need to put any scare, because we need to get them ready for this unpredictable world. And knowing these profiles, if we can fashion our education around it, I think we would be doing yeoman service. But at the end of all this, my weakness for touching extends way beyond my technology. And therefore I sometimes think of that astronaut who went up, and she was a teacher. She said, touch the future I teach. Wow. Look at her ability to be a world-class technology expert. She's just leaving the earth and going away. And because she's fundamentally a teacher, she said, I touch the future I teach. Don't take away I don't think technology will replace what I can do to a child, but they still have to survive.
That was so
beautifully
explained, ma'am. The profiles so elaborately and so precisely told. And I love this touch the future thing. It is actually so true that we are, groomed in that way. And I think we should groom our generations to come also in that way. That physical proximity,
like this,
that touch is important. Very beautifully said.
If you cannot teach caring and sharing, it's not a cliche.
Yeah.
If you cannot teach outreach, if we cannot reach people who are in distress, this Sonu Sood, this person who's now being celebrated, I mean, everybody has money, come on, but everybody doesn't reach out. Yes. That's why I always say money is yours. I think that's a very hard-hitting statement that I've taken on myself. Money is yours. The resources are common. Agreed. Don't try eating it off.
Yes.
Therefore, community outreach, sharing, caring, what more lessons can you learn from a pandemic than housing people? Today, when your mates come home because you were without it for 2 months, I think our generosity to our mates are better. When she says, I've not gone under the sofa to clean, I say, I understand, please do it tomorrow. I'm not bossy and say, come on, now you have to do it. Because I understand the pain. I understand that they're also going through very difficult times. So my humaneness, and what is the use of being a human being without being humane? So I think Success lies in being and creating as teachers good human beings, good, innovative, productive human beings who are humane for the future.
I agree, ma'am. And with touch the future, touch lives. That is the lesson we can give them. Touch lives, isn't it?
Right.
So with all the changing scenario, with the changing profiles of the learners, changing profiles of the institutions, the teachers, everything is like topsy-turvy now. And Uttara, can you just highlight on what do we need to do to be more environmentally conscious the way forward? How can we contribute to that? And what measures can we take?
So, firstly, ma'am, everything that you said again was so to the point and like you hit the nail on the head. So thank you so much for that. And taking forward from that, something that really resonated with me about what Lata ma'am said was that we are teaching the children of the future, the children who are in school today. Honestly speaking, a student who's in nursery or let's say in junior school, we don't even know what kind of career choices are going to be available to that child when they pass out of school, or what kind of higher studies. And this terminology that we heard about, the VUCA world, that we live in this world, volatile, the VUCA world. Yes, volatile, uncertain, complex, and also there is a lot of ambiguity. So this is the world that we are living in, and the pandemic has even made it, let's say, even raise that whole quotient to a higher level. So today, so much of uncertainty, so much of ambiguity, so much, it's all volatile. Nobody knows what is going to happen tomorrow. The doctors also have discovered, and still discovering. So my own nephew has been treating COVID patients, and every time I spoke to him or I asked him, he had something different to say. And I really realized that, the struggle that they are facing, the struggle that teachers are facing, what is that? So that is the environment that has been created due to this pandemic. Now, one is an environment which is, situation around us, and one is blossoming during this lockdown. I mean, I had gone yesterday only to Gurgaon after a long time, and so much of greenery. I was absolutely normally in the car, you're on the phone or something. I kept looking. I said, wow, look at this place. This drive is beautiful. So what is this? How has this happened? Just because we have now got shut up. So human beings have been shut down. The entire earth is blossoming, isn't it?
Yes.
We've seen peacocks on Marine Drive. We've seen all those videos, all of us. Dolphins in Ganga and everything happening. But what will happen now when life comes back? When we start moving back? What is going to happen? Again, we'll be crying. Again, we'll be cribbing. Again, we'll be saying, "Ye kyun ho raha hai? Waisa kyun ho raha hai? Pollution ho raha hai? Ye ho raha hai? Wo ho raha hai." So somewhere I feel I strongly feel that education is something that can change the world. So somewhere I feel that if we make environment education a compulsory subject like English, where it is marked and it forms a part of your report card when you pass out of school, and it is compulsory. You're not going to be allowed to not do it, and it will be counted when you get into college. I feel it's very, very important to teach this young generation, because the way the earth is being treated now, we've all had a wake-up call. The earth is literally, shaken us up. And in Delhi, more than ever, with even earthquakes, it's like literally, you stay in or you get out. The earth is saying it's very volatile. So when all that shaking up that's happened, as adults, I think it's important that we make environment education. The new education policy talks about skills, talks about teaching children all about skill-based education and bringing back, vocational things, which is wonderful. But personally, I would really, really be very happy if we can start making environment education a practically done subject. Teaching children how to grow vegetables should be compulsory. Whether you do it in a pot or you do it in a plant, Why is it left to a innovative teacher who will get those seeds and do it? And, and then it's a class lesson. It doesn't go home. Why is it not something that children are taught to really, really value the earth? मतलब मिट्टी में खेलने से बच्चों को क्यों रोका जाता है ना? नहीं होना चाहिए. मिट्टी से तो हम बने हैं. 5 तत्व से बना हमारा ये जिस्म है और वहीं वापस जाना है. I mean, I don't want to go there. That's a huge another discussion which I am very passionate about. But still, I feel children should be allowed to play in the experience the wind, to be outside.
Your voice is breaking.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Is it better?
Yeah, better now.
Yes.
Better.
Yeah. So yeah. What I'm trying to say is that we must do something about this. That environment awareness, education, and actually making it happen is a part of a child's education. It is not just a subject like EVS, which is taught through books. It cannot be taught through books. So, and today this technology can give us that. I had a teacher telling me the other day, she was teaching plants to a class 2 or 3 student, and the student was sitting in Himachal, and he took the children on a tour of his apple orchard and actually showed them the apple blossoms and everything. And the whole, for class 2 or 3 students, what a fantastic opportunity. Why we should tap these things, and even if it is showing it to them online, once you've got that, that curiosity in a child's mind, the child is going to explore it. And for those who don't, तो marks डाल दीजिए, compulsory कर दीजिए, board exam में paper होना चाहिए जो compulsory है, तो सब बच्चों को पता होना चाहिए कि हवा मतलब प्रदूषण कैसे होता है, कैसे रोका जाता है, what am I supposed to do? All those things should be taught. They should know how to protect planet Earth, because there is no planet B. We only have this. You can have a plan B for your meeting. You can have a plan B for your, everything, but there is no planet B for us. And I think we've really realized it now. But, like we are very resilient, we adapt very quickly to all these things. We forget also equally.
Yeah.
हम बहुत जल्दी भूल जाते हैं कि हमारी क्या परेशानियां थी और हमने कितना ये सब. Already you can see it happening, where the lockdowns have opened, people have started taking risks, people have started being more, mixing around, doing things, which is all right. I mean, each to their own. But somewhere, at least some important lessons that this pandemic has taught us have to become a part of policy, have to become a part of education, have to be introduced, so that tomorrow if something happens, and who's to say that this is the only pandemic that is happening now? You hear so many stories. We used to watch movies, and hear stories about chemical warfare and bio warfare, and we thought ye to sab movies mein hota hai. But look at us, we are all facing it. I never thought in my lifetime I'm going to face this kind of a situation, but we are. We thought, Second World War, First World War happened in the books, and we've seen it. But somewhere I think it's our moral duty and responsibility to prepare these children that, beta, you need to take care of this planet. You need to take care of the environment in all aspects. Again, here, when I talk of it, I talk in a little more holistic manner. We talk about IQ, right? We say intelligent quotient is very important. Bachche ka IQ acha hona chahiye, all of that. Then we say EQ, new kid on the block is EQ, right, ma'am? EQ should be good, emotional quotient should be high, you should be able to connect with people. Just before this whole thing where we've become so dependent on machines, I had so many parents telling me, children are on the mobile all the time, they don't have friends, they don't connect, phone pe hi lage rehte hain, phone pe hi lage rehte hain. Ab hum sab hi phone pe aa gaye, hum sabhi machine pe aa gaye. We need to teach something called social quotient. We need to teach children to make friends for life. They just don't have friends. All the friends are online. All the friends are strangers. Many friends are those who they've never met. They're playing, poker and all kinds of things. online, right? So is it for me, my friends from school, from college, from my, I mean, long time friends we have, people who we've known all our lives. And they are the support system for us even now. But today's children, if you ask them, who are your friends? Not really, yaar. I don't have too many friends. It's okay, you know. When I go to college, I'll probably make friends. Or why? Making friends and having friends is so important. I think that, you know,
Your voice is again gone.
social, we will have to ensure that children don't get into racism. I'm sorry about this. That's the disadvantage. If I was in a seminar in front of you, my voice wouldn't go.
True. True.
That's
But see, we all are also so patient.
the new world, right?
Like
Do you hear me now?
we all are patient. Yes, better.
Yes, there are certain issues. Yes, all right. So basically what I feel is that we must teach children to be socially creatures of this world and to be socially responsible people, where while they are connected, they are also responsible for the environment that they are in, whether it is an environment that is the earth, the nature, or it is the environment that is man-made, where they have to ensure that there are all the qualities come in here, that you need to be kind, you need to be compassionate, you need to have empathy. Like ma'am said, for your maid, what have you developed? It's empathy, because you've lived in her shoes for 4 months. You've understood, Otherwise, you always felt that she could do better or this is not right. But when you've actually lived in her shoes, some of us still living, how much we value our house help now. We understand the value they add to our lives. So similarly, we must teach children these things. How are we going to do it? What are the methodologies? There's so much material available. Everybody should make use of that. And even parents, I urge all the parents here, please teach your children by example. I was reading somewhere, the voice in our head that constantly talks to us as adults and children is the voice of our parents. Whatever our parents told us is something that we inherently believe is true. Because when we are children, right from the time we are babies to as we grow, the people who we trust implicitly are our parents. We are wired like that. So if a parent tells a child that, oh, you are very smart, you speak so well, 99.9 that child becomes a good orator when they grow up. A parent tells a child that, oh, you love reading. Even when you talk amongst yourselves, oh, my daughter is a reader and my son is a sportsman. Why not the other way around? I don't know. I hope we get there too. But, that stays with the child. So always talk positively to your children and make sure they have very positive self-images. The children should love themselves. We should all as human beings really value our own worth, because we are the people who can finally do whatever is required today to either make it or break it. So let's take that conscious choice and let's, make sure we teach this. Along with social quotient, another one that I have added is adversity quotient. This pandemic has taught us how to handle adversity. And those who are handling it well, those where there are positive mindsets, people who've gone into using this as an opportunity to upscale themselves, whether it be yoga, whether it be walking, whether it be meditation, whether it be learning, painting, drawing, cooking. Those are the people today who are coming out of it easily. The ones who are living in that sort of fear that what is going to happen, they are the ones who are going to have a major issue. So when we teach children through example that it's all right, and that's what the teachers are doing, isn't it? Getting onto a laptop, managing your class, happily teaching, telling the children that it's okay, I can't write on a board, doesn't matter. I'm using my other boards or I'm using a whiteboard. I've seen pictures of people putting a refrigerator shelf on their phone and using it as a board. How innovative teachers have become. But what are they teaching in a subconscious way? That we'll handle it, that it's okay. We'll find a solution. You're learning, your school is going on. And children are, the routine that school is providing students today, the routine of getting up in the morning and having something to do is, I think, most important. People who are without jobs or people who have no routine today in this kind of a situation are facing the maximum problems. We all have a routine, so we can manage it. Somewhere, even mentally, you feel that, okay, things are not so bad because I am still connected. I'm still doing this. I'm still adding value. For a human being, it's very, very important to feel that you are adding value to the world. So I think, how do you teach children this? You show them, again, storytelling, examples, live examples. You take them experientially in a team, do it on the football ground. Automatically you find leaders come up. Children, certain children will have certain skills, certain children will have certain skills. You have the ones who are the moderators, you have the ones who are the leaders, you have the ones who will always, help settle a fight. You have the ones who are the motivators, who will push the team. So many skills come out. So I think practical learning is very, very important, which has to become, and thankfully the education policy is now making that impact on all of us. We've been doing it for many, many years at our schools, and I'm, very happy to see that this will now happen across the spectrum. But definitely, I just pray and hope that this environment education thing happens, because somewhere, we have to be more responsible. We can't just sit back and say, maine kiya to kuch nahi hua. It's not that drop of water that you don't turn off your tap when you brush, that shower that you take when you can have a bucket bath, all those, the plastic that you use, I mean, everything. How do you stop it? And if we teach it, Vinita and ma'am, when I feel, I have children who've come out with so many innovations. When they know, when they're aware that this is going to cause a problem, they are the ones who are going to find the solutions to it. What is stopping them? Solution finders are our children. Just let them be. Their innate curiosity will help them do so much. So I think somewhere as adults, while we do all the teaching and balancing, we need to let children be at times and just explore. And that is where, like ma'am said, the senior children today, the independence that they have got, they are so happy. They are enjoying their classes like never before. Of course, another reason is that they have their mug of coffee and they don't have to be in uniform. That adds to the class
Comfort.
adds to their class. But then what is wrong with that? I personally feel, what is wrong with that? It's okay. We need to shed those old age ideas that, everything, okay, when you're in school, yes, discipline is required. Those are certain things which we maintain. But honestly speaking, if a child is at home and teaching is happening like this, I see nothing wrong with them definitely they shouldn't be lounging around. They have to be attentive. But children are enjoying it. Younger children are enjoying it in a different way. They are getting to see so many PPTs and videos. So somewhere we have to balance the two. And I feel that we must look at environment education and look at our environment otherwise as responsible adults. Don't be happy now that, sab kuch bahut acha hai, blue sky hai, double rainbow dikha hai hame, in Delhi NCR. We were so excited. For the first time, we saw a double rainbow. Honestly, even fruits and vegetables, friends of mine who have trees, they're saying we've never seen so many guavas in our trees before. This year, there's suddenly so much. Nature is like, what is that telling us? Nature is telling us that I am there to take care of you. I can manage everything. I can heal myself in days. But just take care. Stop, misusing me so much. And I think we need to teach our children that. We really need to teach, otherwise we're going to be in deep trouble.
But Uttara, I think, rather than me teaching, I think if each parent takes that responsibility of demonstrating it the right way, leading by example, the problem will be solved. We need to actually demonstrate in small ways, even, maybe segregating the garbage at home and planting trees at home or respecting what we have at home. I think that demonstration, that leading by example would really help them. Teachers can just say, but actually children are seeing their parents doing it. So everything I think begins from there. So the real learning.
And Vinita, One more thing I'd like to add, in rural areas, in rural and semi-urban areas, respect for Mother Nature is much more.
Higher. Definitely it's higher.
Higher. You know, it's in the urban areas where we feel that it's not important. I'm getting the water in my tap and I'm living in this house, which is very beautiful, and all the resources are for me. Here's where what ma'am said comes back. And money may be yours, but resources are common. Absolutely, ma'am. Again, like the nail on the head. Totally.
Yes, and I would like to share that there's a trust here, I'm talking about in Faridabad, which works for underprivileged children. There are around 3,000 children who, come to study under the flyovers or in the parks. And now, obviously, because of pandemic, they have not been able to do something. But like ma'am was saying, the different profiles, the different skill development, that are the things, those are the things they were doing in the school. Something like we saw in that movie, Three Idiots, literally those kind of projects the children were making. And now, because of the lack of resources, they have started, education on WhatsApp. They have started collecting them together, hanging one screen somewhere and all of them teaching. I mean, it is so beautiful. And ma'am, Lata ma'am, I would like to share one more thing with you. I met a student of your Barakhamba just 2 days back.
Oh,
that student
wow.
narrated, he was remembering you so beautifully. With all due respect to everybody who came after you, he says Lata ma'am was the principal to be cherished forever. Nobody could ever make modern the modern as it was. And another thing, he was remembering some teacher who was a historian in that school. I don't remember the name. He says, ma'am, one day I was eating popcorn in the class and the popcorn fell down. He says that teacher came there, picked up that popcorn, and she did the whole R&D about it. She told us the history of the popcorn, how it came, what happened. And I think that is the beauty of those teachable moments. So I just recalled and I thought I'll share that with you.
Thank you so much. No, you know what? These are the people who make you feel rich. Yes. I can tell you, because I'm older than all of you, that you try competing with me on richness. You can't. You can have all the diamonds and all the cars and all the bungalows around you, but the older you get in your profession and the way children come back to you with love and remember you, that makes you the richest human being in the world. And I am one such privileged person. To begin with a school that you're so beautifully nurturing, Vinita, my baby is born there. The rest of them are grown-ups.
Yes. And this is the
when I look at your Maulshri, I feel it's mine. I hardly can, I don't have the largest to give it to you when I think of it. But that's something I cannot carry, so I had to give it away. So when I look at the world, it's such a beautiful, happy place, and the life of a teacher even more beautiful. Because if children can say something like this to somebody else, we have won it all. None of the listed awards are more important.
I agree.
The award of what you can keep in their hearts. The listed awards are only a list, and it'll gather dust.
Totally, ma'am.
What people carry, what the students carry in their heart, and they can talk to somebody else with so much of respect and love. I'm very
real treasure, real treasures.
Real treasures. These are our, and we don't need lockers to keep them. We don't need lockers to keep them.
I am getting very mean on it because maybe I'm very passionate towards, definitely all children, but yes, children with special needs. So one last question which either of you can, answer for me is that there have been so many challenges, definitely. But anything the schools can do for children with special needs who were integrated, who were in the mainstream. So how can we help them? Because definitely, online education is not helping them. Yeah. Any roadmap for them?
Okay. Uttara, you want to take it before me?
Either way, ma'am, as you say.
Okay.
All right.
You take it, then I'll talk. Why don't you take it?
Yeah, sure. So, Vinita, I agree with you to an extent that yes, online education has been difficult. But some of our children I have found have adjusted to online education very well. And special needs children, because we are doing, I mean, what is required, I feel, is one-on-one classes with them.
Yeah.
Because, yes, has to be one-on-one. So when a teacher is sitting with a child one-on-one and working with them, and the teacher has to know the child obviously and know their strengths and plan accordingly. The curriculum has to take a back seat here, because here again what we have worked on is looking at building skill sets through using technology and trying to see what the child likes to do. So even if it's cooking, and even if it's preparing something that is, let's say, an artwork or something, here I think again what we've felt is that having the connect is more important than covering a certain curriculum. Because here the need is not to really make the child, finish something there. That can be done later. We can self-pace the child. But if the child is feeling connected and if the child is feeling supported, the child is responding much better. We've also just tomorrow, in fact, in our Faridabad school, we have a coffee morning with our parents. So parent support group is also very important. So we've actually asked the parents to pick up a sachet of a packet which has coffee and certain instructions and activities which we want them to do with the child online with our special educators. So just bringing a feeling of community together, bringing a feeling that we are in this together. And again, parents are working with the children, special educators are working with them as on a one-on-one thing. Of course, the goals change, the IEPs change, the programs change, but that I think is acceptable. But honestly, I'm telling you, I've had a few children who've responded beautifully to online. They've started making PPTs, they've started, creating things on their own, which have been rather, I mean, we have been pleasantly surprised. So don't underestimate the children is my thing. Don't go with a presumption that, there's going to be a problem. Go with the presumption that the child will learn, will manage, and let's look for support at the right quarters. That is what I would like to say.
So I think just adding on to can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So just adding on to what Uttara said just now, the special education, I mean, I feel very grateful that yours is one of the school which had in Chandigarh, yours and mine, which had in Chandigarh the first Special Olympics.
Yes.
If you look back at your history, we were the ones to set up the center with 2 children and 1 teacher who was in our school. And thereafter it grew in dimension and you all have carried it so beautifully forward. So there is where the sensitivity got planted. And I want to tell you that, now when you look at what you need to do for them, is that the plan has to be even more strictly done when compared to a normal lesson. Because this is almost 100% predictable, it is one-on-one. And here, because the special educator would sit with the child one-on-one in school, like that, what we have done is, we send the plan to the parent, because the parent is the other person sitting with the child. Children cannot sit alone and respond whatever their age group, depending upon their difficulty levels and their diversity levels. So the plan is sent to them. So there are things like, please come and sit for the class with your child with the following things. It could say a foolscap sheet, or it could say an A4 sheet, a ruler, and then please draw 10 lines and come to the class. It could say such strict information per class is first sent to the teacher. So the special educators do this on a regular basis, because each of their classes have very great detailing. And then they come to class. And then, for example, if a lemonade has to be made, the process for making exactly and the things required. And the teacher says, now you will help your child do this, don't do it for the child. So slowly that is done. So basically, one of the things we decided was, we'll do some functional literacy, we'll do some functional numeracy, but we'll also do some general studies. Instead of calling it UOW, understanding our world or something, it's based on the UOWs of irrespective of the class, but do some general studies because they are growing up at their own pace. I'm not talking of ones that are getting ready for any of exams because we have accommodations of the board which can be considered in detail and talk about it. But by and large, as process and procedure, irrespective of the class, the instructions to the parents based on the lesson plan and the attention span of the child is broken down into small units and sent to the parents in advance so that they sit with the parents. This is up to class 5 and also up to class 8 because their chronological ages do not match with their classes in which they are. They are growing at their own pace and we are not bothered. We are not there ready to prepare them for an exam. We are just seeing one step at a time how much they are progressing. So we are doing that. And some of the children have the tertiary levels where they take medicines and they go off to sleep and then raising them. So we have also flexible classes. What we have identified is based on the difficulty levels and the age groups and the transaction subjects or material. How many hours do they require? How much is possible with them and their parents? So this, we have gone into it in micro details so that that class may be a short class, but an impactful class. And when the next class starts, it's learning on routine assessment as learning, which becomes critical for them. We have taken assessment as learning to say that yesterday we did this. Did we do this yesterday? So if they are able to tell you what they did yesterday, it is a feedback into your next process. So little things about formatively going response managed learning and response assessed learning, feedback into feedbacks with a plan. And the plan date, thankfully we used to have a PM for which they will come and sign. Now they are the ones who do it. And we tell them the screen time is over because they can't sit here too long. And the instruction given to the parent is please get this job completed and do. And even when the teachers are making their PowerPoint presentations, the font, for example, is big for them to read. It goes with an arrow or a finger one by one, and then they're supposed to do things like that. So, and then numbers and material from the kitchen and from the household is got because some of them don't have the materials at home. Some of them procure the materials. So we're going into, the only difference is slow, deliberate, well instructed, well responded, feedback and feed in, both. And as learning to make sure that that is growing stepwise. So it is a little difficult. We cannot definitely say that it is the same as in school. That is why these integrative classes are important because as I say, latent learning, you teach and they or help learning, but they learn because of the others, their peers. They watch constantly, they're doing things and they kind of respond to environments of learning, which is strangely lacking. But it's not a very disappointing scenario. No. Really, it's not a very disappointing scenario. We'll have to evolve because each school, each child in this case requires a different curriculum. The IPs are important. For each child, IP has to be made. So the IPs are very important.
In fact, ma'am, when we started just after the lockdown, you know, and because I have a center of only special needs children. So the parents' first query was, ma'am, what will happen? How are we going to do it? I told them, see, even if they don't go ahead, I want to make sure they don't go back. That is something that's most important for me.
Correct.
And
Correct.
I have seen, ma'am, results which were unexpected. I had never expected these children to respond so beautifully. In fact, you know, sessions, not only special education, sessions like speech therapy and occupational therapy with the help of parents are being conducted online. And India, you know, we have started doing it. It has become, children are responding more. I think they were more in tune for these things rather than one-on-one classes.
Yes, absolutely.
In real life.
So, you know, totally true.
Another thing I'd like to add here is that while, you know, it may be, I mean, it's working, each individual child is responding differently. It's working out very well. But here also somewhere, you know, in some classes, integration should be done with all the other children. Because for them also
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
important to feel that they are part of the
Yeah.
class. So
Yeah,
that
I
is,
agree
whether
with
it's
you.
activities or whatever you feel, but
Yeah, true,
important.
true.
Again, here, you know, I'd
You
like
know,
to
we
share.
integrated them in math.
Yes, I'd just like to share
Sorry,
one
sorry.
thing. Here also, you know, we have the same demarcation of children who have schools available and children who don't. So I know somebody who runs a school for special needs children who are from the rural areas, and they have been struggling because they cannot come to school. So you know what this friend of mine has done? She has looms, these hand looms. She has placed them far away, and she's got these children to come with all precautions because they are older. I mean, they are not very young children. They are all 16, 17, 18. They are also children with special needs who are still in school. And these children, they just, and the material they have turned out on these looms is mind blowing. It's so beautiful because it is so intricate and it is so perfect. They will not do it till it is perfect. All right. You know, so it is, that's a new skill that they have learned, and that is giving them an outlet. So parents should look for opportunities where maybe safely, if they can take their child, you know, and make them, get them involved in some activities where they have their kinesthetic movement is also there, because that is a huge problem, especially for children with special needs, because you know they are not getting that movement. So that I feel should be paid attention to.
And post
Uttara, that's a very beautiful thing to do. Uttara, that's a very beautiful thing to do. These looms talking. Somebody,
ma'am.
I think in Pune, did something very beautiful. If they have placed looms in different places, some 3 or 4 looms, bigger ones. And when they have to punish a child, they say, go to the loom and you will be there for 5 minutes. So we will look at the length of the dari that is made and say how many of you defaulted when we look at the product.
So,
I
so
thought,
Good
wow,
idea,
look at
ma'am.
the way
Good
you
idea.
brilliant idea.
such a good idea, such a good idea. And I
Yes.
said, oh my God, this should be replicated.
Yeah.
And you can, and she said, it's not only a measure of the beauty and the punishment, but when I look at how long my dari has been woven, I know how many times you guys made mistakes.
Such a constructive idea.
But you know, ma'am, I
What a
have seen
constructive way of punishing.
yeah, but you know, I have seen a child with even cerebral palsy doing stitching and sitting on a machine and being able to do embroidery and stitching, just because you know the movement is not there's not much movement required and she can manage it. And it has brought a positive change in that person to such an extent that where she was lethargic, sleeping, not bathing, she wants to get up every morning and come because she wants to do that. And you know, she's all precautions have to be taken, but somewhere I think if you find such outlets now, since you know world has opened up a little bit, that could provide a very good thing for our children.
You know, in modern school, I'm naming it. I used to have a fashion designer parent, and somebody in their family said, if you can develop skills for that, we are not worried about whether he gets a certified 12th standard certificate or otherwise. This child today, he's a very able assistant to this fashion designer who is his uncle or something.
Oh, lovely.
I won't name the person, and he's now designing stuff because he's got the environment, he's got the resources, he's got the richness, he's got everything, and he's doing so well. And to somebody else who was not as endowed as this child, but also a special needs kid, that child, we had worked out with, I think Lemon Tree does it pan India. Check out with them.
Yes,
we have placed our children there for, I think about 2 months for training, who came into class 10. And thereafter, they have absorbed them in their cadres for their careers.
Yes.
So, you know, this, I think one of the things that educators need to really look out for is this inter-institutional camaraderie and collaborative work. That is where we are going to work with the uniqueness of children. We say each child is unique. Let us strengthen that uniqueness and place them to give them lives, livelihoods, and happiness. Absolutely. And work with the parents. It's possible. So I think beyond just the numeracy, literacy, and others, we need to give them life skills and social skills that will actually make them independent people, because they're not going to be always having parents and family around. Someday when they're alone, they should be able to stand on their 2 feet. That should be one of our purposes of running special needs classes.
And we have many opportunities around, ma'am. Like
So many, so many.
There's a restaurant called Soda Bottle Opener. If you go there, you will find all the deaf and dumb children taking orders and serving people. It is so beautiful to see them. So passionately they do that work. So we have opportunities. The society has become aware. We need to just explore and find out where we can, seek that.
Place them. Beauty parlors.
Even parents here, I would, because I'm sure there are many parents here. Parents should not feel that I need my child to be a graduate or a postgraduate, and only then is my child successful. The point is not about knowing, like ma'am said, your literacy and numeracy. It's about knowing how to handle your life. If you can earn, if you can manage your life well, and you can do a business, then I don't see any reason why you should be having any problem. It's perfect.
No, and look at the other end of the spectrum. There are children of the extremely rich and famous who will go to Yale and Harvard and study and come and stay, even work there for 5 years, managing their own affairs, because there's no one to cook and help, irrespective of the infrastructure you have. You finish that, and then you come right back to manage your parents' gaddi, as they say. You come back into your dad's business. You have gathered those skills. So it is not about what kind of a job you'll find. It is about how skilled you are and raising the generational richness, as I call, whether it's in your industry or whether you're living your life independently with dignity. And what is, an end of the day, what you have given them are 2 feet to stand and wings to fly.
Absolutely.
That's what is our role.
Absolutely.
And how pandemic has helped, I feel, is that the parents who were not very closely working with these children have started working, because now they understand the children more, and maybe by force, insisting that you need to work and do it. So they are becoming closer to their children, and they are also helping in this initiative. That is really beautiful.
Absolutely.
But I think, ma'am, it was a very, very rich session. We can go on. We three are so passionate. I think we can go on and on. So to conclude, I would say that yes, this new normal in education is foreseen, and I'm sure with the, it is going to have an impact on the pedagogies also, on the assessment, on the teaching ways, everything. And we all are gearing up to adapt and adopt the change wholeheartedly. We all are. And I think we three, at least, we can spread that energy and make it synergy soon. There will be challenges, there will be barriers, but surely they will push us, to come out with new solutions. And with the help of technology, definitely, we are going to make it big. We are going to cut across every hurdle. I would end up with a saying by Yavor Beg. Yavor Beg said that teaching is not about answering questions, but about raising questions. And I'm so sure that the questions that we raised today and that have been answered today will definitely bring more clarity on how our real heroes, I call them real heroes, our real heroes of education, our teachers, are planning to imbibe it and implement, maybe through the new education policy, maybe through their own intent, because I believe no policy can work until and unless you have the intent. So it is your intent as an educationist that matters more, because you would have seen so many institutions with big, claims. But until and unless that particular teacher has that heart and an intent of making a difference, nothing will happen. So all of us, I think, had a lot of takeaway from this session. And I really thank you from my heart, Lata ma'am and Uttara. It was really, really wonderful. And I really believe that the viewers and listeners would have had a wonderful takeaway from the session. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
God
bless you. It was wonderful interacting. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much. Lovely meeting you, Lata ma'am, again.
Yes, Uttara, of course.
Thank you, Vinita, for arranging.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Uttara.
From 45 minutes, we could extend so much because I think we three were enjoying so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you to the audience for staying on.
I know. Yeah.
everyone here for staying on and making it so enriching. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to everyone present and support the world.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. True.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes.
So
Totally.
shall we exit?
Bye-bye.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Thank you
Shall
so
we
much.
exit?
Bye, ma'am.
God bless. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. You too.